Wow, here we are again. Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word. I've been reading for a while in this poem book that I have, written back in the early 1900s, and put together, Better Than Gold, it says, and it's lines to live by, and it's put together in New York, and the date of this printing of it was in 1968, and in the religious side, or in the side of the churches, or inside of the preachers' poems and metaphors, I read some things. The minister's eulogy is to study or not to study. That is the question. Wow. How lazy we are sometimes that we don't want to study. We say, well, we prayed about it and asked God to give us something. If He's going to give you something, you're going to have to do some study to get it. And that's the way it works. Whether the nibbler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of work poorly done, or to take homiletic arms against a sea of lazy minds. Wow, if this guy right here, he sure hit the nail on the head when he was writing this poem. And by opposing in them to prepare to study. Now, when you're going to study, you have to prepare. I have been preparing for a while right here, in this very day, to put some poems on. The poems that I am going to read, I've already read. I've already studied them. I've already looked at them. And I already have placed some things in my heart in them and see that they're good for us. And no more. And by a sermon to say, we end the heartache and the 1,000 knocks that a minister is heir to. 'Tis a sermon devotedly to be wished, to study, to prepare, to sermonize, the pretense to dream. There are sermons, for it is delivered of a sermon what dreams may come. When we have shuffled off this mortal laziness. We all have that mortal laziness. Say that we're going to get up there in that pulpit and we're going to preach a sermon that we haven't studied, that we haven't done any research on, or we haven't done anything on. It will go no further than the pulpit. And you'll do well to have the people back the next time you stand behind that same pulpit. When we have shuffled off this mortal laziness, must give us peace. There's the respect that makes a studied sermon of so long life. And you know, and this guy wrote here, but this Nell G. Stevens, she wrote with apology to Shakespeare. Shakespeare has some yings and yangs in it, and some drawings and whatever. My kingdom, I do not ask for any crown, but that which all may win, nor try to conquer any world except the one within. Be thou my guide until I find, lead by a tender hand, the happy kingdom in myself, and dare to take command. And that was Lois May Alcott wrote that, and that was probably in the 1800s. And the church, let's take a look at the church. And this one is by Morton. The church is not an edifice where something is walled in as protection from the world, but where something is poured out to save the world. It is not a fortress which simply defends the garrison. It is rather a simply houses from which much is given out daily and freely, to help those high and low. No matter how much money is spent, the buildings, gadgets, stuff, and staff, especially meetings, and the like, it is the life of prayer, the devotion and study that ultimately determines the value of the church. Wow. I must say, at the church that I go to, we have a very, very studious preacher. He spends multiple hours on each time he steps behind that podium. He has multiple hours and dozens of notes. I sit in the balcony and I'm looking down on him, and I see the thickness of his notes. Maybe 25, 30 pages. He may not give them all, but he has done them. He studied them and he's ready. He's prepared. He was the word that spake it. He took the bread and break it. And what the word did, make it. I do believe and take it. Queen Elizabeth said that. Wow. Getting mad and quitting the church. An old Negro preacher said to his congregation, some folks think they hurt the church when they get mad and quit. But they are wrong about that. It never hurts the tree for the dried up apples to fall off. That was a wise old black preacher, wasn't it? The old dried apples need to fall off. From the rim of the Ancient Mariner, Part 7. Oh, sweeter than marriage feast, 'tis sweet for to me to walk together to the kick with a goodly company, to walk together the kick and all together pray, while each his great Father bends, old men and babies and loving friends, and youths and maidens very gay. Farewell, farewell, it is I tell, to thee the wedding guest. He prayeth well, who loveth well, both men and bird and beast. He prayeth best, who loveth best, all these both great and small. For the dear God who loveth us, he made and loveth all. Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Religion. What about religion? From Mrs. Sledge, the medium. Religion's all or nothing. It's no mere simple or contentment sigh of aspiration, sir. No guilty, oh, the fiddler-tempered clay, like its whiteness of its lightness, rather stuff, oh, the very stuff, life of life, and self of self. Robert Browning penned that one down. God builds no churches by his plan, that labor has been left to man. No spears miraculously arise, no little missions from the skies. Falls on the bleak and barren place to be a source of strength and grace. The church demands its price in humble toil and sacrifice. The humblest sphere in mortal kin, where God abides, was built by men. And if the church is still to grow, it's still the light of hope to throw. Across the valleys of despair, Men still must build God's house of prayer. God sends to churches from the skies. Out of our hearts they must arise. Angels. If after kick divide a we, there's some would like to speak to ye. If after kick you rise and flee, will all seem cold and stiff to ye. The one that's in the seat where ye is stranger here than you may be. All here, ho, got their fears and cares. Add to you your soul unto your prayers. Be ye our angel awares, author unknown. Often and oft have I seen at some cathedral door a laborer pausing in the dust and heat, lay down his burden, and with reverent feet enter the cross himself, and on the floor kneel and repent, or far off the noise of the world retreat, the loud verifications of the street become an undistinguishable roar, so as I enter here from day to day and leave my burden at the minister's gate, kneeling in prayer and not ashamed to pray, the turmoil of the time desolate, the murmurers die away, while the eternal ages watch and wait. Wow. Want to be happy? Would you like to be happy? I would like to be happy. Yes, I know you do. For the desire of happiness is presented in every human heart. And we seek happiness, each one of us, in our own way. We think, if I can do certain things, if I can get to such a place, if I can reach such a position, if I can get a position of so much money, so much money, then I will be perfectly happy. But when we reach the goal we have set before us, too often we find nothing but disappointment. For these things do not and cannot bring happiness in themselves. Happiness is an intangible thing that comes not through possession, but through qualities of mind and heart. The Master of Life gives us the only rule of the attainment of happiness in the Beatitudes, and they are so plain that we can understand them. Why not try his? If you know these things, happy are you if you do them. Wow. I am quite certain that there is nothing which draws so good, or at least so large a congregation, as a fight in the pulpit. At Belton Hall. Wow. What about the devil? Men don't believe in the devil today as their fathers used to do. They have forced the door of the widest creed to let His Majesty through. There's not a mark of his evil foot, of a fiery dart from his bow, to be found in the earth or air today, for men have voted it so. But who is making the fatal draft that pulses hearts and brim, while fills the world each passing year with 100,000 sins slain? The dog, the steps of the toiling saint, and digs a pit for his feet, and sows his tears in the field of time. Wherever God sows his wheat. The devil is voted not to be, and of course it must be true. But I wonder who's doing that kind of work the devil alone should do. And the author is unknown of that particular one. The arrival of a critical writer. See, many of these poems in this poem book are out of the very early centuries of America. George Martin's hymn has captured in 2 lines the secret of the only true liberty there is. Make me a captive, Lord, and then I shall be free. It's good to have money and things that money can buy, but it's good to check up once in a while and make sure you haven't lost the things that money can't buy. George Horace Lamar. Wow. If. What about if? Let's take a look. If you can go to church when all about you are going everywhere but the house of prayer, if you can travel straight when others wobble and do not seem to have a righteous care, if you can undertake a noble service, expecting others to pitch in and boast, but find them doing everything to hinder or sitting down like bodies on a roast. Roost, excuse me. If you possess yourself and pray, God bless you, when every muscle in aches to smite. When something says, give up, you struggle. Since others fall, why stand alone to fight? You'll find a prince by you in the furnace. You'll find a presence by you in the sea. You'll find a presence by you in the battle. You will find a presence by you in the furnace. Yes, everywhere and always. You remember those 3 boys that were cast into the fire, and there was a 4th one in there with them. You can remember every time you're in the fire, God is in there with you. If you can trust when others faint and falter or stand and serve, when others flee away, unmoved by either Jezebel or Ahab, remaining faithful every loving day. If you can keep your courage up and boast it, yes, boast the church right on until the end, you'll prove yourself a very noble human. And what is more, you'll be a saint, my friend. Wow. Many of these poems are yings and yangs and jots and tittles, and they are unnamed. They're unnamed, but they were penned down by somebody. What about the book of books? Sir Walter Scott has to say, within this simple volume lies the mystery of mysteries, the happiest they of human race, to whom their God has given grace. To read, to fear, to hope, to pray, to lift the latch, to force the way. But better had than ne'er been born, than to read and doubt and be in scorn. Wow, Sir Walter Scott. He knew the book from A to Z. His mind had mastered every part. A fine achievement, but alas, it never got into his heart. Wow. If you're going to study God's Word, it needs to get into your heart if you want to be there. God's altar There is all in the sons of men, a love that is spirit dwells, that panteth after things unseen, and tidings to the future tells. And God has built his altar here to keep this fire of faith alive, and sent his priest in holy fear to make the truth for truth to strive. Ralph Waldo Emerson. By the way, he was from the state that I hail from, the state of Maine. My father used to love his poetry. And my grandmother, who was a lighthouse keeper's wife, and my father was raised on a lighthouse when he was young. And they did much. Matter of fact, my grandmother's poetry book I have right here, the poems of Addie Hutchins. She wrote poems after poem after poem. She was on the lighthouse. She wrote hymns and she wrote poems. Many of them were seen back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. They're worded a little different than we do. 1.5 miles from the church. We're 1.5 miles from church, you know. And it rained today, so we can't go. We'd go 10 miles to a party or show, though it rain should fall and wind should blow. There, why where it rains, we just can't go. But we always go to things we like, and we ride if we can. If we can't, we hike. Religion is meant to be bread for daily use, not cake for special occasions. The church service is not a conversation to which the family sends and delegate. Why not all come and sit together this Sunday? The man with a consecrated car. He couldn't speak before a crowd. He couldn't teach a class. But when he came to Sunday school, he brought the folks immensely. He couldn't sing to save his life. In public, he couldn't pray. But always his jalopy was just crammed on each Lord's day. And although he could not sing, nor teach, nor lead in prayer, he listened well, he had a smile, and he was always there. Where all the others whom he brought, who lived both near and far, and God's work prepared, for he had a consecrated car. How about that? Enter the door, as if the floor within were gold, and every wall of jewels, all of wealth untold, as if a choir in a robe of fire were singing here. No shout, no rush, but hush, for God is here. My soul be on thy guard, 10,000 foes arise. The host of sin is passing hard, and that drew thee from the skies. O which the flight, and prayer the battle, ne'er give, O renew its boldly every day, and help divine. And this was George Heath. One more poem, and we'll call it a day. Where childhood needs to stand, standard, or youth a beacon light, where arrows, where sorrow sights for comfort, or weakness longs for might. Bring forth the Holy Bible, the Bible. There is a stand, resolving all life's problems, and meeting its demands. Through sophisticated counsel, the Bible, there is stands. Through phrases profane, its influence expands. It fills the world with fringes whose sweetness never cloy. It lifts our eyes to heaven, the heightened human joy. Despised and torn in pieces by infidels discreed, the thunderbolts of hatred and the haughty cynics' pride, all these have railed against it in this and other lands, yet destinies have fallen, but still the Bible stands. The paradise of highways, the Bible there it stands, its promises unfailing, no grievous, its commands, its points, men to the Savior, the lover of his soul. Salvation is its watchword, eternity is its goal. James M. Gray. Wow. One little last thing here, a prayer. Lord, what a change within us. One short hour spent in thy presence will prevail to make what heavy burden from our bosom take. What parched grounds refresh as with a shower. We kneel, and all around about seems to lower. We rise, and all the distance and are near. Stand forth in sunny outline, brave and clear. We kneel how weak, we rise of full power. Why therefore should we do ourselves this wrong, or others that we are not always strong, that we are even overborne with care, that we should even weak or heartless be, anxious and troubled when within a prayer. And joy and strength and courage are with thee. And that was written by Richard Trench. I like his final thing here with an exclamation point. Hell is truth seen too late. Hell is truth seen too late. Wow. This is one of my special poem books right here of old. I have this one. I had several poem books. And it seems that the writers back in the 1800s or so knew how to mince words much better. I don't know if there are many people out here today who can actually do poetry. Well, we will see you next time. You'll have to forgive me for stumbling and bumbling over many of the words. As I said, I did get my Bible college behind me, but I didn't get my schooling before then. So therefore, my reading ability is somewhat nil, but I still love to read it anyway. And we'll see you next time. Right. Bye-bye.